Hello and welcome to another edition of Storyophonic, a regular conversation series with tips and tales from deep inside the music industry. Please take a moment and rate us or give us a review on your favorite podcast platform. You can follow us at storyophonic.com as well as on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Now let's meet the host of Storyophonic, Dan Campbell.
The relationship between songwriters and music publishers is an integral link in the music business. In our studio today are representatives of both sides of this equation. Kay Hanley is a songwriter and recording artist whose grown-up gig, as she calls it, is creating music for television shows like Doc McStuffins, Josie and the Pussycats, among many other credits.
I just want to say that songwriters have found their voice in the past couple of years, and now songwriters have a seat at the table of ideas moving forward. And I want us to all take a moment and recognize that. It's a big deal.
Michael Eames is the co-founder and president of Penn Music Group, now celebrating its 25th anniversary as an independent music publishing company specializing in songs for feature films and television shows.
Kay and I can jokingly say we're going to try to solve all the problems in the unclaimed money world, but the reality is we can't. We are proud cogs in a very large wheel, but it takes a village.
Both Kay and Michael are inspired advocates for creators. They are very involved in the complex issues to assure the economic destinies of songwriters. And they cover a lot of ground right now on Storyophonic. Welcome to the Storyophonic universe. It's a beautiful day in Los Angeles, California. We're having way too much fun in the booth because we have a cast of, I was going to say thousands, but it's a cast of a couple of folks with us today. We have two guests in studio. Number one is Kay Hanley. We know her from the band Letters to Cleo. We know her as a solo artist, and as a vocalist, she's been everything from a friend of Jesus to the voice of Josie and the Pussycats. From the business side of the business, we have the businessman.
The boring side.
Oh, it's always interesting to see you. Michael Eames, president and co-founder of Penn Music Group, and they are celebrating a very special anniversary.
25 years this year.
25 years, and it's a mainstay independent music publisher, and they do a whole lot more than that. We're going to get into all of that as we go along. We're also going to be talking about issues that affect music publishers, affect songwriters, affect fans of music, and affect us all on a really deep level. So we're going to start with you, Ms. Kay Hanley. Hello.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
So nice to be here.
You have such a weird career. You've done so many things, and you do so many
I'm
things.
glad you see it that way. I do too.
Yes. From the Boston area originally,
Yeah,
and
it's the sort of career that you have when you just fall ass over tea kettle into one thing, to another. Yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing, but it's working.
Well, I think the people that have long careers in the business are people that can do more than one thing.
Right. I think me saying I have no idea what I'm doing is an old thing that I used to say a lot because I really didn't think that what I did was very special. I didn't think I was an especially good songwriter or singer, but I just always kind of surrounded myself with really good people kind of by accident and got great opportunities and was able to kind of capitalize on stuff. But as the years have gone by, and now I'm 25 years since the last time I had to wait a table.
Nice.
And I've come to realize oh wait, I actually do know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing.
Well, obviously you do.
So I'm saying it here to you right now. Breaking news. I know what I'm doing.
I like it. Writing songs for television shows has been as particularly, we know you from that as well.
Yeah. My big girl job is writing music for animation.
Yeah.
It's really the best.
How so?
Well, from a purely songwriting standpoint, the idea that I get a script, there's a story that's unfolding, and in the middle of this script, there is a place for a song. And so right away, I have a directive. It's like the song has to move the story from point A to point B. The song is going to do that. Now, this is not about me. I am helping someone else realize their creative vision. So right away, my ego is extricated from the process. I can have a pure creative exercise helping someone else realize their vision. And taking the ego out of it, for me, is like really helps me to be more fearless. And, the words that I choose, the melodies that I use, the way that I, kind of let the stuff tumble out of me. So,
Is there a liberation to that?
oh,
in
absolutely.
Writing the voice of characters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm writing for myself, I'm very caught up in what I want people to hear, what I want people to know, what this says about me as a person, as a user of the English language. Like there's all kinds of fear that comes into the process when I'm writing for myself. And that just doesn't ever happen. Well, I mean, unless I'm on a deadline, then there's, that kind of fear. But like, will I finish this in time?
Yeah. Yeah.
But otherwise, no, it's just it's a wonderful use of my creative energy.
Is there a difference in writing for the voices of an animated character as opposed to writing for the voice of maybe a human character?
That's a great question. I co-wrote songs for Doc McStuffins for 5 seasons on Disney Junior. And we got to know those characters so well, those animated characters, different ways that they talked. I knew what each of them would say given any set of circumstances. And so it was, the comedy of it, just the way they would respond. It was such an incredible experience. Like by the time we were into our 3rd season, I was like in these characters' heads. It was amazing. As opposed to like, writing something for Josie and the Pussycats where that is it's a fictional. Actually, well, for Josie and the Pussycats, the movie, they were people. They weren't. I wasn't as familiar with the animated version of that property. So I knew that I was writing for, Rachel Lee Cook and Tara Reid
Right.
and Rosario Dawson and, sort of the Gen X kind of. So it was more like writing for myself, but in character, which is just kind of a looser, more brash version of myself, if that's possible.
You've also given voice as yourself a version of "Cruel to Be Kind." I remember in
10 Things
10 Things I Hate About You. Right,
Yes.
exactly. I remember that was you.
Yep.
So yeah, you're all
I've
over
been
the place.
around. I've been around, honey.
I'm learning stuff I've never known before. So this is good for me.
That's
Getting to know you.
that's good. Any challenges that you have not yet done that you would like to do?
I don't know until I get there.
Yeah.
Usually. I don't have the wherewithal to think that far ahead. I'm always just like, what's right in front of me?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that works out, doesn't work out so well in and of itself. I was late today. That's still on my mind.
Oh,
Clearly.
I think we forgave you by now.
Thank you.
Because you're so brilliant. It's okay
Thank
if you're
you.
brilliant. I mean, if you're late and you're brilliant. If you're late and you're not on your game, then that's another thing.
So true.
You know, but
I'll let my mom know that you said that.
all right. All right, Michael, like you said, 25 years of pen music, and that's written all in caps.
Well, and 25 years of Kay.
25 years of Kay.
We have
How'd you
two-
meet?
We started
have-
at the same time.
I say we have 2 common threads. We've got, that we didn't plan this until we're recording now. So we have the 25-year thread, and I was born in Newton.
No way.
I swear. So we have
Newton,
the Boston
Mass.
connection.
Yeah.
Another mass hole.
Yep, Newton General. That's where it started, baby.
And you were on the creative side. Well, I mean, you're still on the creative side, but you were a composer.
I kind of went through my own transformation, not dissimilar. You know, I was the dork who, like, growing up, I loved film scores, I loved songwriting. You know, I kind of flirted with the artist thing and then realized that I kind of sucked at it. So I went to college, did the music major thing, and literally the proverbial at the end of college, I knew one guy in LA who lived in a 3-bedroom apartment. One bedroom came open, and he was like, hey, would you want to come out here and rent this room? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I came out here to be a composer and a songwriter, and naively assumed it would happen very quickly.
Sure.
It was an incredibly humbling experience. Yeah, and then here was the thought process. Like, okay, I'm a music major from Cornell. I want to do film scoring. I think I sort of know what I'm doing. Let me go out there, and then while I pursue this thing and get it going, I'm going to play piano in recording sessions in the meantime because I was a pretty good pianist and sight reader. And then I get out here, and I'm like, oh my God, everyone can play circles around me. I can sight read like a crazy one. But it was like, a buddy of mine threw me into his band one night, and he was just like, all right, let's see what you can do. And I horribly crashed and burned. Ooh. And it was just like, I think I'm going to stick to this composing thing. So tried the composing thing, did UCLA Extension film scoring certificate program, a whole lot of stuff, student films, etc. And then this little thing came in of, oh yeah, I'm living on my own. I got to pay the bills. How the hell am I going to do this? So I started answering ads in the Hollywood Reporter, and I was temping in the meantime at a bunch of different entertainment-related things. And then the first official job was Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys, oddly enough. And they needed help in his recording studio and office in West LA. But it was my first exposure to publishing because they handled his publishing for his solo works out of the office. And then, there was a nice, let's say, like a nice 6-figure check that came in while I was there. And I was like, wait, that's all from the Beach Boys songs? What's this called? Publishing? And that's only for 6 months? Like January to June? Really? So I was like, I got to look into that. And then left, for anyone who knows the Brian story, if you know the Svengali doctor, he was my boss. I hated him. He was evil. He's passed on, so I can say these things without it coming back to haunt me. But then worked for a guy, Derek Power and Seth Kaplan, who still are managed film composers now. But Derek had a publishing deal at the time with Virgin Music, so it was another exposure to publishing. And then literally the day that Derek's office manager quit and he thought I would take her place, I got a call from a woman I'd met while temping who said, yeah, there's this music publisher guy. He looks after the Jimi Hendrix catalog. He needs help. He works out of his house. I thought of you. So I was like, I keep hearing about this publishing thing. Let me check it out. So I met with him. We got along, and 3 years I was with him, and I literally you can't think of a better catalog to learn something on, right?
Sure.
Everyone would return my call when I mentioned Jimi Hendrix. I kind of learned things on the go. This guy, Don Williams, who I'm still in touch with today, he was like, well, I need help in international. So if you're going to go do international, you got to go to meet him. So I was like, I think 24 when he was just like, all right, we're going to send you to France and you're going to interview all our sub-publishers, decide, I want to report, are we going to stay, are we going to go? And if we're going to go, you need to recommend who we're going to. So, and I've pretty much been to meet him ever since then. And at the end of that 3 years after I'd learned, I don't want to say I learned everything. I learn everything, something new every day, like we're here to talk about. But, I was kind of like seeing how much money was being made and how much I was getting paid per hour, tried to cut a better deal, didn't happen. So I was like, I'm just going to try this on my own and see what happens. So hung out the shingle with 2 other guys as Penn Music Group, and knock on the proverbial wood, we're still fighting the fight 25 years later.
That's great. That's great. You saw, I think, early on that the business model was going to, and also I should say for those listeners that don't know what music publishing is, we're essentially talking about all the business done on behalf of songs. I mean, to put it under that umbrella. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that you saw coming was the influence of songs in films and songs in television shows.
For sure. I mean, obviously, because I had grown up and I'm still to this day a total score geek, and listen to everything incessantly. But that combined with at the time, so let's see, I started in 94. It was probably like late 90s where I was kind of like, I feel like there's this niche of independent artists who could kind of do that whole, we control everything all together. We call it all in or one stop, sort of licensing. And there wasn't really a whole lot of it going on at that period of time. So I'd say there's probably, myself as Penn and a number of others, I'd say probably about 10 of us that kind of like were like, hey, there's an opportunity here. How do we do this? Most of them went the route of becoming like a film and TV focused library. But since I had come from the background with the Jimi Hendrix and all of that, and obviously with a catalog such as Hendrix, like even though like Don didn't own it at the time, well, I mean, he still doesn't, but he didn't own it. He'd administered it. But I came from that view of like, hey, you can like administer songs too. You don't have to own them. And of course, a guy that was a songwriter who then learned the value of publishing, I have always felt strongly that, every songwriter should keep their publishing, I mean, unless there's a certain business reason as to why you shouldn't. If you need money and you partner up with someone who's willing to give you money, well, then you've got to share in that. Or if, we do a thing too where if we take a song that has no life in it and we're the ones that breathe the life into it at a certain financial trigger point, we become those co-owners, the co-publishers in it. So, still to this day, 25 years later, 95% of my clients are admin deals, and which on the business side of it is a little bit tough because not like I have any desire to sell. I love what I do, but like you can't sell a company built on admin deals.
Sure.
I mean, Bug was the only one that kind of sold that was kind of known for admin, but they also owned a lot of stuff, or over the years. So yes, I'm focusing on the owning aspect of it, but I mean, I love what I do. I'm 25 years in, but I'd love to maybe go 25 more years. So, and it's kind of like, even if I was a quote unquote co-publisher, we're not here to talk about this, but like a lot of co-pub deals end up being glorified admin deals because after a certain period of time, the rights come back. So it's kind of like, if I keep somebody happy and I keep them for 50 years, for all intents and purposes, I've kind of been a co-publisher in a way all along because I've kept them. So my job is to just kind of make everybody happy and hopefully collect all their micro pennies and create more micro pennies through as many outlets as possible.
Yes, and the world of music publishing is very much about micro pennies. It's very much about...
It's become that.
Well, we'll be moving into that very shortly. I understand you have one song in your catalog that you have many. You have obviously a lot of catalog that you're representing, but I guess there's one song that I'm thinking of in my mind that you have like weekly requests for. Would that be I've had?
See, now you're going to have to clear it.
I know. I knew you were going to say that.
So I was going to say that earlier when Kay was like, getting to know you. I'm like, okay, now they're going to have to clear that.
Oh, no.
I did less than 8 notes. That could just be one of those things.
Unfortunately, that's how publishing has affected me. I can't even enjoy a film or a television show or a commercial anymore because I immediately hear it. And I'm like, I know that publisher's difficult. Yeah, how much did they pay for that?
Totally.
Or, it's unfortunate. It's sort of a result of... the war that we're in.
I got it.
It's the mindset. But yes, you're talking, I've had the time of my life from Dirty Dancing.
Yes, exactly.
And yeah, it's amazing. And it's like we're talking about owning your own publishing. I think it's a cool story, which I can tell, I think in a minute or less. It was basically a guy in New York got a call hey, man, we have this indie movie and we have the final scene tomorrow and we still don't have a song that everyone's going to dance to. Can you write it? So that guy's Frankie Previtt. Yeah. Frankie then calls his friend John DiNicola and is like, hey, I got this call. We got to write this song and we need to do it by tomorrow. I've already got an idea for the chorus. This is what we're doing. And then they're like, well, God, we got to not only finish the song, we got to record it because they need to like dance to it on set tomorrow. And John's like, let's call my buddy Donnie Markowitz. He's got a studio in his bedroom. So literally in like 24 hours, these 3 guys write the song, record it in Donnie's bedroom. And as I have heard the story over the years, if it's accurate, the deal was it was going to be a work for hire for the film because they wrote it for the film. Ooh. And it was for an $8,000 fee. Ooh. But in the final analysis, they ended up like every other movie that exists. They spend all the money and there's nothing left for music. So the producer comes and is like, hey, I'm really sorry, but we only have $5,000. So Donnie's wife is a music lawyer, and she's like, no problem. We'll just license it to you. Everyone will keep their own publishing. We'll take the $5,000 as a license. And the producer was like, yeah, sure. Because no one knew it was going to turn into what it turned into. And then, that's 31, 32 years ago, and these guys have had, an incredible hit ever since then. It's unbelievable to me.
What
You
a
just never
great
know.
story, Michael.
Isn't that cool?
Thank
I
you.
love that
You told it really
story.
well, too.
I tried to do it in under a minute.
Brought it right in
You
there.
can take all the time you want with that story.
Yeah.
It's such a good one.
It is a really
and
really
so
good-
rare.
Yeah.
It is. And it kind of doesn't really I mean, I'm sure we can come up with a story that it's happened. I mean, I think that's what I love about what we all do. You just never know what's going to happen. And
You just don't.
a lightning will strike and boom, all of a sudden you got a hit song.
This is true, and that's such an interesting thing about our business. If it only belonged to the players with the deepest pockets, that would be one part of the story. But that's not the case. There are things that come through that it's just because of the value of them or the timing or all of those factors.
Yeah.
Can't teach that stuff. Speaking of teaching, you're also teaching at UCLA Extension now yourself, are you not?
Well, I am in the online. Bobby Borg, who
Yes.
who has been teaching forever and has written tons of great books, kindly asked me to join him in teaching his online Intro to Music Publishing course at UCLA Extension. So we've been doing that.
Very nice. And you're also co-author of the book 5-Star Music Makeover.
I need to travel with you more often. You're a better
Really?
publicist.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Why, yes, Dan. I wrote the music publishing chapter to this book called The 5-Star Music Makeover.
Right. Published by our friends at Hal Leonard, of
Yes,
course.
indeed. Well, they've actually sold that
Yes, they have.
division.
Yes, they have.
And I'm embarrassed that I don't entirely remember the name of who bought them, so I'm not going to mention it and horribly bang it.
I have
up,
that letter
but-
at home as well.
Exactly.
Right. But yes, I'm just saying that our careers do a lot of different things. And you most recently, of course, were president of AIMP, Association of Independent Music Publishers.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah, so-
No, it's I have been an independent music publisher for 25 years and am very proud of it. And I think there's, as we're kind of talking about today, there's been unbelievable amounts of changes in the 25 years. Like, had I known then what I know now, would I have embarked on my own? I don't know.
Interesting.
It's really hard. I mean, not that I ever expected to be sipping pina coladas on a beach somewhere after 25 years, though it would have been nice.
Yes, it would.
In some ways, it's just as hard now, if not harder, than it was back when I started.
And Kay Hanley, when you were coming up, was still under the major label system, correct?
Yeah. Are we ever out of the major label system?
No.
I mean, I guess they're not so critical to a band's success anymore. It's like there are so many
Right.
different, as an artist,
Yeah.
there are so many different avenues one can take to reach an audience. So, if you're really business savvy and really, kind of like willing to get out there and sell yourself and sell your product and stuff, you can kick ass out there
Yeah.
if you're willing to do the work. None of those things ever applied to me and still do not. So I always need like a boss or someone to like help me. And so in the 90s, everybody was getting deals. Everybody was getting these monster deals. Speaking of publishing, I will tell a quick story. This will take me 30 seconds. I signed my first publishing deal. My entire band, Letters to Cleo, all of us wrote the songs. We signed one publishing deal together as like a monolith
Okay.
to Famous Music
Yeah.
for $5,000.
No way.
Yes, in
Oh, man.
1992. But we were psyched. We were like, these
We've
people
made
are
it.
gonna give
We've
us
made it.
$5,000. We bought a van, like our old van that we were like had like a hole in the floor. I can't believe we didn't die of carbon monoxide poisoning, like all those winters and like up and down the East Coast. We bought like an Econoline van, and so it was awesome. Like no regrets. I mean, well, a few maybe
We've
now.
had a few.
But yeah. So yeah, okay. So that aside, we, in Boston, like generally, like if you really were very careerist, you would leave Boston because there's no A&R people in Boston. They're in New York. We did not, but we like trekked down to South by Southwest and stuff like that. And we, in our minds, we kind of fantasized about like, that feeding frenzy that was happening to
Right.
other bands that we kind of toured alongside, and it just so happened that the week in 1993 we did a showcase at South by Southwest. We had just put out our debut album, Aurora Borealis, on this local label called Cherry Disc. And Billboard ran a cover story, a review of the album that they ran on the cover the week of our South by Southwest. It was like, this kind of luck never happened to
Wow.
us. Like, never happened to us. And this was the year that like our venue burned down and all kinds of shenanigans took place on that particular tour. But we got to South by Southwest. There's a review on the cover of Billboard. Our booking agent and manager like ran to the nearest Kinko's, like mimeographed a bunch of covers and like ran down to the Four Seasons where all the A&R people were utilizing their expense accounts and handed out the cover. And we had like a packed gig.
Wow.
And we got it. We signed with Irving Azoff.
Yeah.
And I made 3 records with Jeff Aldrich
Yeah.
at Giant Records
Yeah.
under Uncle Irving.
Uncle Irving.
Yep. Same A&R guy for 3 albums.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Never. Yep.
Wow.
My whole entire artist career had the same A&R guy, same label.
That's
It's
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have no idea if that's what you asked, but that's the story that I told.
That's the path we went down.
You hypnotized me, so I forgot what I asked. But no, we talked about the major label system.
Yes.
And the truth is, of course, there are obviously less major labels at this point than there were at that point, or they've consolidated.
Mm-hmm.
But
sure.
as it's been explained to me, what a major label's value now is, they've said to me, we can't start the fire. We throw gasoline on the fire. So it's up to them to take a career at a certain point and either upstream it or to be able to velocitize. Is that a word? Velocitize.
I don't know, but
They've
that's kind of a
outsourced.
cool word.
They've outsourced A&R.
They have.
Yeah.
They have. But everybody is in the A&R business, which is also
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Artist development is kind of, I think, everybody's job in some ways.
Yeah, I'd say certainly over the years, I'd say publishers have been looked to more and more for artist development because the labels have taken less risks.
Yeah.
And I think now it's like, I mean, I agree with what Kay said earlier. Like, there's so many ways that you can get exposed and discovered, now. I mean, that's why I've always loved the film and TV thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, it's even, in the main network world, like a TV show that, say, has 5 million viewers in the TV space is going to be considered a bit of a bomb. But, like, your song's just been heard by 5 million people. So it's like you can't even really... And not only that, you didn't pay for it. Like, you got paid to get your song used so that you could get 5 million people to hear your song. So, I mean, it's pretty cool.
It really is. We've had as a guest Carrie Kimmel, who I'm sure that you all know.
Indeed.
Who really, is very dominant in that space and does a great job. And also, you probably watch television with TuneFind open to see what you're listening to, because now you can...
Or Shazam.
Yeah, there you go.
Shazam is your friend.
It'll tell you exactly what you're listening to, which I think is great, and that's a way that we all use to discover music.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the irony, is that as we talk about these things, there are more uses for music now than there have ever been in the history of the world, which is incredible, which is also ironic because it is, being demonetized in many ways. We'll move into that in just a second, but a few more things on the creative realm with you all. I took classes at UCLA Extension when I was coming up. I took a class in artist management. I thought I wanted to be an artist manager.
Yeah.
And I remember a panel at UCLA Extension with a bunch of, record company cats. And one of them said, he looked out at the students, he said, the only people in the business with long careers are the ones who are sitting up here. And that really, really made an impression on me. I was like, oh.
Of what not to be?
Yeah.
Or did it terrify you at the time?
Well, it part of it terrified me at the time, but part of it made me think of the fact that, I saw his point. I understood over time what he said. It made enough of an impression that I remembered
That
it.
you still remember
I still
it.
remember
Right.
it. And it made enough of an impression as is what he says correct. We talk about somebody like Irving Azoff, who is, a mega force in our business and has been for decades. So the business side of the business, in a lot of ways, is a more substantial kind of beachhead, if that's what you want. But I don't think people choose to be creative people. I think either you're creative people or not. And then, same with music. You don't choose to make music. That's what you do. That's what you do, Kay Hanley. You make music.
That's true.
Right?
That is true.
And then over time, these different opportunities have come along.
Exactly.
But
I'm still only employable in one medium, in one industry.
I have thought about
that's
that.
the one I'm in. It's like, what?
Yeah,
I
what
don't
would
even
you
know.
do?
Like, I don't know how to fill out. I don't have a resume. Like, if I had to go get like a job, I have no idea what I would do.
And so many people that I know that have left music, for the most part, all became real estate agents.
Oh,
Yes.
So, I mean, like now I feel
Yep.
like I can't even do that because there's a glut of real estate agents if I were to ever not do the music thing. So, but yeah, it's like, what else? I can't imagine doing anything else.
yeah. I think by the time one thinks about selling out, there's no buyers. So so we just have to go on. But I mean, that's why we like with the podcasts. I mean, you're speaking to the choir here in terms of who's in the studio. That we live this life and this is what we do, and then you figure it out over time. And it's interesting when I look at the artists that you have. Artists like Shy Boy may not be known hugely within the community, but a very creative person, does DJ stuff, does recording stuff. You get a lot of placements with Shy Boy.
No,
correct?
and like any artist, he's gone through his sort of different phases. He was the lead singer of a rock band and has now kind of gone off on his own. And
Gosh,
and exactly,
Yeah.
you remember.
I do.
Good man.
I do.
Yeah, but I think what has been interesting for me on the business side, because I never really desired to be in the Econoline van, and sort of going around everywhere. That's kind of like where the composing thing appealed to me, right? But I think what has affected my view of everything now is the way the business has changed, the way I would define success has changed. In that, obviously, I mean, Shy Boy, is not even your typical independent artist because, I mean, he's got over 1 million followers on Twitter or whatever the official social media stats are. But like anytime I've been at either of these like songwriting festivals or events or whatever, or mentor sessions, what have you, that, everyone's dream growing up was always I want to get signed to a major label and have the same A&R guy for 3 records. But it's like now it's like, well, that doesn't exist anymore. You have to kind of create your own business before a label will even want to come in to sort of take you to that next level to say, okay, well, here, we can do X, Y, and Z because you've been able to build it up to this point. And it's, to me, the way to look at it now that I tell everyone is just like, okay, Dan, you're a new artist. Here's your challenge, that what you have to do. You need to just find 1,000 people who throughout the course of a 12-month period will spend $100 on what you do. Yeah. That could be a concert ticket, that could be a CD, it could be a t-shirt, it could be like whatever it is that someone follows you. And $100 is what, like $8.50 a month? Like, it's a manageable thing. But if you can just find 1,000 people who are willing to spend $100 on you throughout a year, you're making $100,000.
Yeah.
Like,
that's a pretty damn cool
really
living.
Good
That's cool.
point, Michael.
Yeah.
So to me, so to me, the success, the Shy Boys of the world, is because Shy Boy and his partner, like they used to work at a bank, and it's like the fact that you can do music in all the myriad of ways in which the amazing Kay Hanley sort of does all these sorts of things. It's like, well, you've created your own, success because you're not relying on one thing. You're doing all these sort of different things, and you're able to earn money off of what your art is. And your art can be everything from music to voices to what have you. Like, I just think that's cool.
I think it's a great opportunity. And for truly motivated people making great music, I mean, I wish I had time to listen to all the great music that comes across my desk every single day. I would do nothing but sit and listen to music. And I could do that.
There's a ton out there.
It's great music. Well,
it's
it's easier to get it out there. It's more difficult sometimes to get it listened to.
Oh my God, we are so incredibly backlogged. It's like you get in all these industry directories, and you're getting. I mean, literally we must get like 5 to 10 emails every day of here's me, listen to me.
Yeah.
And it's utterly overwhelming.
Well, absolutely.
But you do what you can.
You can. Now let's talk about some realities in our world. Let's talk about the good things first. All right, and
I think that was it. I think we just covered all 100% of them just now.
Uncle Dan's
Now
going
it's
to draw you in.
Don't.
No. Here it is. No, a good thing is Songwriters of North America, SONA.
Right.
An organization, a very strong organization. We have had, you are a part of one of the founders of SONA, correct?
That is true.
We've had Michelle Lewis with us here. We've had the very shy, demure Dina LaPolte as our guest.
She's a wallflower. Did you get her to talk?
No, she was just terrified of me. And of course, the good news was that the Music Modernization Act passed, and that was passed unanimously.
Yes.
Right? Was signed
Shockingly.
Was signed by a certain president, and you know, and it's an amazing thing. However, then there have been challenges to that. There have been challenges.
Well, I want to back up and get for a second, since you brought up the SONA part of the Music Modernization Act, and because that, you know, I was along for the ride for the 4 years that from the inception of SONA, which is Songwriters of North America, for those of you who don't know, and
we are Sona.com.
Yes, thank you, Michael.
I'm your announcer today.
We are a songwriter advocacy group, and we fight for the protection of the value of songs and songwriters in the digital marketplace. The creation of SONA was a direct response to the abysmal rates being paid by the streaming platforms to music creators. So SONA got on the legislation and consent decree train early on. Like, we're real nerds, and I think a lot of us, you know, in any other life would be, I will speak for myself. Like, I, you know, in my secret dream life, like, have on like a crisp Prada suit and a briefcase, and I go to the corner office every day and someone brings me coffee. Not real life in any way, shape, or form. But anyway, I'm really wonky about this stuff, and most people in SONA are. We were able to help shepherd what became the Music Modernization Act with no money, no lobbyist, no nothing. We $25 to $100 donations got us, you know, our executive committee to and from Washington, D.C. to go help fight for the passage of the Music Modernization Act. And so I just want to say that, like, songwriters have found their voice in the past couple of years. And now songwriters have a seat at the table of ideas moving forward. And I want us to all, like, take a moment and recognize that. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Continue.
Well,
Sorry.
Well, amen
is a big
to that.
deal.
No, it is a very big deal.
Yeah.
It's a very big deal. You know, unfortunately, you know, within our culture, the devaluation of music, or somehow the idea that music should be free.
Right.
I mean, there's historical imperatives for that. There's a phrase which is yours for a song, which means yours for nothing. It's built right into our language. You know, I used to challenge students by saying, you know, what year did the record companies really lose sales big time? And they would say 2000, 2001. I said, try 1929 with the advent of radio, when record sales went down, diminished by 90%. So, you know, again, there's a historical imperative that comes along with all these things. But in terms of educating people of the value of creators and the value of music, I mean, I think that's again part of the mission. Would you agree with that? That we
Absolutely.
You know, just letting people know who they are.
The bottom fell out with Napster. You know, it wasn't like the slow devaluation of. It's like literally overnight, music became free, and so it has been a slow, incremental crawl climb
out of the hole.
It started with like, well, music is free. I don't want to pay for your record, but I'll pay $5 for your ringtone. You know, it's like we started there, and then kind of like came back little by slow. And so people have never listened to more music. Music has never, you know, the music business has never been worth more than it is today.
True.
I personally, the ease with which I can listen to music now, I've never listened as a consumer. I've never listened to more music in my life as I do now. I've never discovered more music in my life.
Speaking personally, a lot of the things that I abhor about certain providers of music on a professional level are also things that I appreciate and love as a consumer, which is odd, which is
Yes.
having access to as much music as we have access to.
Right.
But part of one of the things is Mechanical Licensing Collective, or MLC,
Right.
which is widely supported under the Music Modernization Act. And so that is for music publishers and songwriters to be in control, more in control. And I know that you both have been nominated for those positions, correct?
Right.
Well, yeah, there's, we've said Music Modernization Act so many times, I'm going to say MMA,
There
which
you
is
go.
not mixed martial arts.
Right.
But that's the law.
It is
Yeah.
the
It
It
is
is the
the
law.
law now.
The
Yeah.
MMA is the law. So, we are in this process of waiting for the Copyright Office to designate who the Mechanical Licensing Collective will be. That's sort of a whole separate process. We are nominated for actually the same
The
committee.
same
I'm
committee.
very excited to serve with Kay on this committee if we are lucky enough to be designated,
We
which
are
we hope we
going
will.
to kick so much ass.
Yeah, we are. We're gonna. It's all those micro pennies we talked about.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's like the great conceptual theory of what came out of the MMA for the MLC is that, and not everyone necessarily knows this, so I won't go too far down the rabbit hole, but all of the streaming services, however big, however small, have employed historically vendors to pay their mechanical royalties every time there is an interactive stream. So, and I guess real quick for those listening that may not know, there's non-interactive streaming and there's interactive streaming. Non-interactive is like SiriusXM and Pandora, which now are one company, which I'm still trying to get together in my head because it gets a little blurry. But, it's any type of that or internet radio where you're not in charge. It's someone else's programming it. You're just tuning in as a listener. There's no mechanical. There's only a performance for those of us in this business. But for the interactive streaming, like a Spotify and Apple Music, where you can create your own playlist, you can immediately go from one song to another, whatever. Those involve a mechanical. So historically, all these services have had to employ third-party vendors to pay all these mechanicals. Granted, there have been really 3 to 4 main vendors that everybody has used, but the reality is every time there was a vendor, there was a new database. So like myself as a publisher, Kay as the songwriter, like we have to now start worrying about like, I'm not going to get paid unless my stuff is correctly registered and put into every single database of every single vendor. And I'm just talking the United States.
Yeah.
Like, let's even not step back, we won't get into the whole rest of the world thing where other societies and databases and whatnot. But, if your information is not in that database, you're not going to get paid. So now with the MLC, once they choose which grouping of proposals, because there have been 2 that have been submitted, is that there will be one database. So, myself as a publisher, any songwriters, like we no longer have to worry about chasing multiple databases that may all have incorrect information. There's going to be one central place. There will be a process to select one vendor or perhaps more than one vendor, but ultimately all the information is going to be in one place, and every single streaming service is going to go to that one place to find out who are the owners and who needs to be paid. And then in mine and Kay's committee world, we get to deal
We're
with
on
the
the
things.
Unclaimed Funds Committee.
Yeah.
It's going to be so foxy.
And
We're
I have to say, Kay and I have talked about this, so I know we're in agreement of just like, you hear about boards, you hear about committees, and, sometimes be like, wow, that sounds a little bit boring. Kay and I are on the sexy committee
we are.
because the whole controversy has been all about like, hey, all this money that doesn't get identified that's going to go into what is usually called in our business as the black box. Everyone's been freaking out that there's going to be tons of unclaimed money that's then going to get distributed out, like after a period of time, 3 years, if it's not claimed, it's going to get paid out to basically all the
People who don't
participating
deserve it.
publishers in the environment.
Yeah.
And the reality is the major publishers have the biggest amount of market share, so they potentially stand to gain the biggest share of this black box. So, that's where, Kay and I are going to have a hell of a lot of fun because, we want to make sure that we do. There's so many layers to this onion, from an education piece to a data piece of making sure everyone's doing what they need to do registration-wise. And for me as an independent publisher, there is a wide range of capability in independent publishers. There are some that are very tech savvy. There are some that are, self-published songwriters are independent publishers, right? And maybe if they don't have the experience of how to take care of things on their own, they're going to need to learn or engage someone to help them. You've got family-owned companies, and heirs that have maybe the songwriter has passed on, but they've gotten the rights back. There's a whole range of roles in that morass, and morass is a positive thing for me of independent publishers. But it's all going to be a way of how do we herd all of this information into one place so that everyone who deserves to get paid does get paid, because Kay and I will feel that we have succeeded along with the 8 other members on our particular committee, because there's 5 songwriters and 5 independent publishers. Like, if we end up with a black box that's 0, that's fantastic. It won't happen. So our job is to limit
get it as close to 0, closer to 0 than it's ever been.
Exactly.
How do you divide the time that you spend? Because obviously this is very time intensive, the things that you work on. But yet you also, Kay, you have a career as a writer. Michael, you run a publishing company. How do you divide that up?
Well, for me,
It's called caffeine.
Oh,
yeah, caffeine. That is a good one.
good.
I'm just a natural collaborator.
Yeah.
I've never been a lone wolf. I always have help, and I'm always helping. It's just kind of like, it's how the flow of my life goes best when I'm collaborating. So for me to jump into this thing, into that thing, it's not like I'm ever spearheading anything. I'm always part of a team. I'm always a worker among workers.
I think we're reminded again that there's a great community amongst creative people.
Absolutely.
Amongst songwriters, publishers, people in performing rights organizations. You're not, you have a lot of support if one knows how to go and ask for help or to get information. I mean, that information is out there, and I think that's a big difference in our world now as opposed to what it was, certainly when I was coming up, and probably when you were coming up too, Kay. These things, and in Michael as well, that the business was a secret. There were great secrets in the business we didn't really understand, and those secrets are now, we have access to the information.
Yeah, we do. And I mean, it's weird because I struggle back and forth with this. In some ways now, things are a little bit more simplified, but at the same time, it's gotten incredibly complex. So depending on sort of what's going on, I'm just kind of I sway back and forth. But it's an incredible amount of information to sort of process and keep on top of. And I mean, to your question of how are we going to do all this, Kay and I can jokingly say we're going to try to solve all the problems in the unclaimed money world, but the reality is we can't. We are proud cogs in a very large wheel, but it takes a village. I have to credit Sona so tremendously ever since they started, because I've, as a publisher, and I have been a proud member of the NMPA, National Music Publishers Association, for a while, but I'm an independent. My interests don't align all the time with the major publishers. So, especially with my time with the AIMP, there's a reason the AIMP started in 1977. It's because about 10 independent publishers sat around a restaurant table and we're like, hey, our interests are kind of different from those big guys. I think we need a voice. Maybe we should get together and talk about this and have monthly meetings. And it's, I didn't join until the 90s, but, it's an incredibly, I think, a wonderful lineage of how that has sort of developed over time. And whereas the AIMP celebrated its 40th anniversary in December of 2017. Though an incredible amount of stuff has happened over those 40 years, well, look what Sona's done in 4 years. It's sort of like happened at the speed of light.
Yeah.
And, now it's like when right before the passage of the MMA, we had kind of an 11th hour, emergency. And because getting anything passed in Washington deals with compromise, and there are a whole lot of interested parties who are going to jockey around to be like, I want this, I want that. And there was a very highly publicized, Blackstone Group / CSAC,
Yes.
potential thing that could have ruined the MMA.
Yep.
And I'll be damned, the songwriter army rose and took over
crazy.
social media
It was awful,
and
yeah.
it was
got
unbelievable.
over 1 million social media impressions from
Yeah.
Music Army in the MMA.
And it worked.
It totally worked.
So it got passed, and in some ways the work has only just begun. Now we wait for the process of the Copyright Office to designate what the official MLC will be. But I mean, frankly, I don't. Kay and I in our committee in this particular application that was submitted, we haven't had a time to sit down yet. But to your question earlier, I'm a little worried that it's going to be a pretty complex sort of thing, but I forget what the number is, but we have 45 people in this particular application between the main board and 3 committees. And there's
the
a reason there's
advisory
committees.
board.
Yeah, we're all doing different things, and we're all going to have to coordinate and move together, and it's going to take a lot of effort, but
what happens during this part of the process, though, will be a lot of it will be operational, kind of laying out a framework for the future.
Right.
And which actually sounds even harder than just doing the job now that I mention it. But it will be real. I mean, the kind of the fun and the fear of it is that none of us fucking know what this is going to be.
Yeah.
You can bleep me out if.
Oh, no, you can say that.
Okay. No one knows what this is ultimately supposed to look like. So that we're going to be creating something that doesn't exist. It literally does. As we sit here today, this huge thing that we're about to embark on does not exist.
Yeah. And it literally is impacting the world. I mean, I hate to sound dramatic, but
I hate to sound dramatic, but we're saving the world.
I didn't say save. I said impact, but
I said save. That was
because
me.
Kay is a songwriter. She is here to save the world. But we're the biggest music market in the world.
Yes.
So, and it's not only works of U.S. songwriters that are getting used here. We've got songwriters and publishers from all around the world who are making money here. So everyone is watching to see how this all comes together and how it's going to function. There's been incredible amounts of controversy. Therefore, there will be incredible amounts of scrutiny. Yeah. So I think everyone's going to be very careful to make sure that everything is being, done. And I have to credit, everyone that's involved from the SONA, NSAI, NMPA, all these organizations that came together to make this happen, because I think there's a very good balance, between the publishers and the songwriters, and particularly the 3 committees that exist under the main board of the MLC, of which Kay and I are a part. All the committees are comprised of no major publishers. It's all 50% songwriters and 50% independent publishers. So, we're going to all work hard and fight to make sure that all of the issues that matter to us are getting attention.
And since we're on this subject, there is a competing, and maybe actually 2 competing versions of this board that we're being submitted to the Copyright Office. So if you want to support our board, our version of the board, so that because we believe that ours is the strongest and that the Copyright Office should and will choose us, but we really want the support of the songwriter, artist, music creator community. So you can always go to wearesona.com, and there's a support the MLC button. You can just click it, add your information, and support us and say why if you feel like it, or don't. Just support us.
Just know that we're going to be out there trying to make it work for everybody and trying to do it the right way.
Yeah. It's very exciting. It all seems really positive to us, you know?
It is, but
I think
but
it is.
damn.
Yeah.
But let's be realistic.
Of course.
Because the businessman and the musician, we
Yeah.
have two different takes on it. I'm just like, it's gonna be great.
Yeah. Well, that's why the beast has two heads, you know?
Well, and we're at an inflection point, I think, where all of this is. Like, we all kind of know streaming is where it's at. So we got to get this shit right.
Yeah.
And get everybody paid, because for the first time in a long time, well, you actually, Kay mentioned this earlier, like, I kind of feel like, I came up, or all of us came up at the time when, the music business was like, it was like everyone was getting major label deals.
Yeah.
There was all this money getting tossed around. There all these records are being sold. Like, wow, we're at the peak
And
of
like
the music
the drummer
business.
in the last band that got the Mondo deal is now the president of the label. Like, it's just like, it was such a weird time.
Yeah.
But like now it's taken some time, but I've like sometimes sat down to do the math of like, I don't think twice about my cell phone bill. I don't really think twice about my cable bill. Sort of do sometimes on the cable bill. But, I think we've gotten to the point where it's like $10 a month doesn't feel like a big
Not
deal
at
when,
all.
when you
No.
can listen to
Anything you want,
anything you
anytime
want,
you want.
anytime. So if we can get that happening all over the world, and it's happening, but
Right.
like if it can continue to happen and go down the path and get off this free tier crap, and everyone realize like, no, $10 a month is pretty cool to listen to every song that has ever existed. Like, we're gonna have a music business that is bigger than it was back in the day when Nirvana could sell 2 million, or was it Nirvana or NSYNC or whatever that sells like
Isn't it so
2
funny
million
that it's
copies in
so much
one
time
week?
has passed that we could confuse the two? It's like-
Not on the genre front,
Right,
merely a
no.
sales figure front. But it's like that. I think that's a pretty fantastic like future. So, but we got to get it right.
Absolutely. Got to get the rate right. Got to get the scale right.
Yep.
And everyone's going to be happy. Everyone's going to
And
get
our rates
paid.
have to go up. I mean,
Yes,
that's this whole
yes,
separate thing that's
yes.
going on now, where, separate from the MMA last year in the Copyright Royalty Board proceedings, CRB, they determined that our mechanical rates that are going to be governed by this MLC are going to get increased over the next 5 years. Ironically, as all of this stuff is going on, it took about a year for the federal government to publish these rates once they got determined beginning of last year. But then the process is they have to be published, and then there's a 30-day period at which anyone can either comment, or anyone that was involved in the proceeding was allowed to appeal it if they didn't like what the decision was. So we waited a whole year. So the whole year the MMA happened.
And we're negotiating in good faith with all of these people.
Totally.
With whom these rates have been agreed upon.
And then then we enter this 30-day period at the beginning of February of this year, once the rates were finally published in the Federal Register. And lo and behold, on day 30,
Hello.
Spotify and Amazon decide, I think we want to appeal this.
You know who didn't? Apple.
Music.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
So now,
we don't want to tell you what to do or anything, but like, for as long as this remains the case, there is no reason for any of us to have Spotify. Stream Apple instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, in the end, just like we all can make an impact with both our votes and where we spend our money.
Yeah. I mean, that is our greatest power,
Yeah.
is the power of the purse.
So we will see what happens. We're literally in the midst of it. We could do part 2 maybe in a couple of months.
That would be
Yeah.
great. As we
We'll
do.
see how this all shakes out. But it's literally become like a daily thing. What the hell is going to happen? What's the music army of songwriters going to do? What are the publishers going to do? We're going to fight. This is ridiculous.
There we are. Well, when the publishers and the creatives come together, that's a beautiful thing. Songs, we need music, we need life. Music is love, music is light, music is life. Kay Hanley, Michael Eames, thank you so much for being our guest on Storyophonic.
This episode of Storyophonic was produced and edited by Lindsay Tomasik.
Our theme music was written, produced, and recorded by Dusty Gray. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Storyophonic. We love getting feedback, so please review us on your favorite podcast platform. If you'd like to know more about SONA, Songwriters of North America, you can go to wearesona.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media, and we look forward to having you back for another edition of Storyophonic.